All right, hey, welcome. Hey, this is Jeremy. I'm the host, coming to you from All Points TV. This is the Genesee County Compassion Club show. Woo! How's everybody doing out there? Glad you guys could be here with me today. Thanks for joining me. And man, it's a beautiful day here in Flint. Great fall weather. It's gorgeous. It's what is it? November 5th.
Yeah, day after elections.
Day after election. Glad I got that right. Yeah, it's Wednesday, November 5th here in Michigan. Got some news about medical marijuana. Going to let you know what's happening. Got some big news, actually. Just had the election results, obviously. Going to share those with you on today's show. We were supposed to have a special guest, but unfortunately, due to family emergency, he was not able to make it. But we'll be hopefully having him on the show here in the near future. And, of course, we wish the best to his family there in the time of emergency. It's Brian.
I think it's Brian Johns, his last name.
Okay, Brian Johns. Definitely appreciate him wanting to come onto the show, and we'll welcome him, like I said, here in the near future. But local activist and medical marijuana aficionado. But hey, we'll get to that here in the future. At any rate, we're still glad to be here with you today. Got some news and info we're going to share with you, and just kick it. If you guys got questions, give me a call. The number here is 810-208-1854. You can call into the allpointstv.com. John, the man behind the mic in the other room.
The other mic, yeah.
The other mic. He'll be here screening you. He's making it happen here at All Points TV. But, man, we're glad to have you with us. Glad to be back in the studio. It's been obviously a busy time. Just had the election yesterday. And obviously that's the news, man. Let's talk about it. See what's up, dude. We've got, 3 new areas, 2 states, 1 area. Just legalized cannabis. What's up with that? And then some other news and results too. Got some local ordinances that passed here in Michigan. We're going to talk about those today, and whatever else we got on the table. Let's see what's up. Down at the Genesee County Compassion Club, it's beautiful. We got a brand new air filter. I think it's still being adjusted right now as I speak. Maybe you're ducking, trying to see me. I can see you underneath the filter. No. But yeah, thank you to the guys who helped put that thing together. Hopefully it helps clear up the smoke a little bit and make sure you guys are able to breathe fresh air in the club. And hopefully it's hung up a little higher, so you're not like hitting it, whatever. Hey, glad to have some fresh air. And other than that, the club's been rocking. We got just awesome times down there. Been busy. Obviously, it's outdoor season this time of year, so appreciate everybody's patience. And, I know it's busy there in the mornings, stuff like that, getting checked in. Appreciate everybody getting along with each other. And definitely it's a good time of year to be down there. If you're a patient, now's the time to just sort of revel in the availability of things, if you know what I'm saying. You got a plethora of strains out there, indoor, outdoor selections. So it's a good time to be a patient right now. Other than that, I think we've got our soup kitchen coming up here. That's just in a couple days, so serving it up down there at the North End Soup Kitchen in Flint. We like to do that. Proud to be a part of it, and we could use your help. So if you've got a free afternoon on Friday, get down to the club about 2 p.m., and then we'll head over to the kitchen, serve it up, and usually done by 5. So if we could get your helping hands, we definitely appreciate it. Usually only need a handful of people, and you get fed as well. It's a good time by all. And we appreciate being able to do this. So help us out this Friday, just 2 days from now. Okay? Need some help.
On the bike trail, that's on Stewart. And the bike trail where I go around a lot of times is just down the road from the Stewart Avenue.
Right on.
And I meet up with a lot of people who are on the bike trail who are actually, there's a lot of
patrons
of that. And so maybe find a way of maybe putting out a flyer when you guys have your time in the kitchen.
It does get changed up from time to time, so it's a little difficult for us to do that. But yeah, I appreciate making a mention, John. It's a pleasure for us to be able to serve down there, and we do like to kind of serve it up. We got the Mad Chef back behind the counter, Matt, who just does a phenomenal, amazing job, and I can't thank him enough for all the effort he puts into this. But yeah, it's not like we're just going down there serving whatever they got. We're bringing it to the kitchen and we're making it happen. So
everything you guys make is pretty much homemade.
Oh man, it is. I got peach cobbler is just to die for. It's absolutely amazing. And we've done fried fish, fried chicken. Turkey dinners, whatever. It's insane what that man cooks. So it's something you don't want to miss, but unfortunately we don't really want to advertise it either, because then we wouldn't have enough food. That's how good it is, man. We get flooded. But we definitely like serving as many people as possible, not trying to deter anybody, that's for sure. So just mark it on your calendars if you would. We like to do this just about every month, and it's that time again. So I wanted to bring it up, let you guys know.
You do it every month. You do it every month.
Every month, man. Every month.
And I know that you give out quite a bit of money. A couple of years ago,
We still give out money.
Yeah, but they don't.
We just don't talk about it all the time.
Yeah, but you guys are. No, I tell people that they start criticizing the Compassion Club. They're just a bunch of burnouts. I said, well, do you realize they do more than a lot of the churches in the area do? Yeah.
We like to be able to give. It's a big part of what we do as a Compassion Club, and it's a privilege to be able to be a part of it. So it's not something we plan on stopping, that's for sure. And just because we don't always brag about it doesn't mean that it's still going on. I think that having a little bit of humility nowadays isn't a bad thing. I think so many times I just get fed up with people taking advantage of things like, oh, we did this and we did that, and really it's just like a big HR campaign or promo, PR, you know what I'm saying? And, not that there's anything wrong with that. A little PR is a good thing. But honestly, when it comes to helping out, that's really what we should just be focused on, is helping out and not bragging about it. So I just appreciate all the people down at the club that do this, that make it happen, and do so without bragging about it. I mean, it's just they do it out of the goodness of their heart, not to get a pat on the back, although they certainly deserve it. So I say thank you to, you know who I'm talking to. Thank you to you. All right. All right, let's move on. We want to talk about some election results. Obviously, yesterday, big election going down. We had, you can turn on NPR or whatever you want to listen to and catch all the election results. Of course, the ones that we're most focused on are the ones that have to deal with marijuana, that's what we are concerned with on the down low. So we had Alaska, Oregon, and Washington, D.C. all have legalization measures on their ballot, and resoundingly the voters in those areas all said yes they want to have access, and again, this is for recreational. It's not just medical marijuana, and in fact all three of those areas already had medical marijuana provisions, and so now this is being expanded to adults 21 and over, and this is for small amounts of possession, also small amounts of cultivation. And then they will, on top of that, create a regulatory system which will allow for the commercial sale and production of cannabis as well. So, the folks in those areas are getting the full gamut, if you will, an opportunity for business as well as, opportunity to use marijuana freely, responsibly, all those good things. Now, on a negative note, I'll bring it up because I got to talk about it as well. Florida had a medical marijuana ballot on the measure, and that did not pass. Beknownst to me, I did not know this. In Florida, you have to have a 60% majority to make a change to their state's constitution. And the measure actually was voted with a 58% yes. So they were just 2% short of getting this passed down in Florida. Certainly a big blow to medical marijuana advocates in the state. They are resoundingly saying that they're not going to give up. They're going to come back 2016, make this thing happen. They're not going anywhere, I believe is the exact quote. And, I hope they don't. I hope they hang in there. I mean, having a 58% of the voters come out there in an election year where, a lot of young people didn't turn out this election. It wasn't a presidential race. I think a lot of people feel disenchanted with the system right now, so that, on top of that, encourages people just to not take part. So, you got a low voter turnout. And I think that it would be wise for the advocates of medical marijuana in Florida to press on. I think that this is something that will pass eventually, and a matter of time is really the question. That's all there is to it. Unfortunately, though, right now it's not going to happen. It did not pass. 58% is what went down. 60% is what was needed. An interesting note, if that were the case here in Michigan, we only need 50% to change our state amendments or state constitution here. We would have passed that sucker anyways. Back in 2008 when we passed medical marijuana in Michigan, we did so with a 63% majority. So it would have still been a yes here in Michigan if we had Florida's rules. But unfortunately for Florida, that is the rule, 60%. So it was a no. And I got to bring up the douchebag who, partially had a part in getting the no vote to be the victor, if you will. Sheldon, and I'm trying to remember this guy's last name. John, you remember his name. He's the billionaire from Vegas. Sheldon.
Oh God, I can't. I'm drawing a blank on the name.
Sheldon Douchebag is what I'm going to call him. He's basically a billionaire mogul. This guy owns the Sands Hotel out in Vegas, the Venetian. He's also a media mogul in the Israeli news. It doesn't really matter what his last name is. His last name is Douchebag. This guy here, he put in like $5 million of his own money into the No campaign down in Florida. Back when they originally put out the ordinance or the ballot measure for medical marijuana in Florida, the polls out there, they said that they had a 90% majority. So it kind of looked like this medical marijuana thing in Florida was going to be a slam dunk when it first came out. But the propaganda machine, boy, it got fed and it did some damage. I mean, people out there got hammered with ads on TV, radio, newspaper, mostly from the funding from Sheldon Douchebag to basically scare voters and saying like, look, your children are going to be getting access to marijuana. There's going to be pot shops on every corner, just like the pill mills. And, they have had a pill mill problem down in Florida in the past. So this is something that definitely rings a bell with a lot of people down there in Florida that are like, hey, yeah, we remember the pill mill problem. It was an issue. And we don't want to have this going on. So
Sheldon Adelson.
Adelson.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. You know what? Just think about this. So
Adelson douchebag.
Think about this. Al Capone would have been actively against repealing prohibition. He's probably making buku bucks off of this.
In some way, shape, or form, you gotta know, or at least you gotta believe that this guy has somewhat financially vested into this. On how exactly is it coming back to him? I don't know. I mean, I don't have access to this man's portfolio. Maybe he's loaded up in AG Pharmaceuticals and wants it to go that route. I don't know. But bottom line is that this guy put a whole bunch of money into a propaganda machine that was fueled with lies and misinformation, and it worked. I mean, you can buy an election in America. I don't think that's news to our viewers out there. These guys know that. But, this is evidence of it. This guy went out, dumped $4 or $5 million bucks of his own money into a campaign and made it happen. He changed the 90% poll down to effectively 58%. I mean, he knocked out 32% of the voters in this election. I mean, it's a huge impact, and it's a single man who did the job. He just did it. Here's the money. Made it happen. Boom. And now the folks down in Florida who need medical marijuana are left with, hey, do we sit around and wait and hope that this thing passes down the road? I mean, think about it. This was going to be passed for people who have serious, debilitating medical conditions. Some of these folks won't be around when medical marijuana does finally get passed. And it will get passed eventually in Florida. It's just not going to happen right now. So I think that this is it's ridiculous. And, you think about it. If this is a fleeting effort, meaning that medical marijuana will pass in Florida at some date, I'm sure Sheldon knows that. How much money is he going to make in the meantime? It just blows my mind at what's going on here. I mean, maybe he's got money wrapped up into the, law enforcement, private prison industry, whatever it is he's into. It's certainly something beyond just getting people to go gamble. And maybe that's it. Maybe he figures, folks will feel too good and they won't be traveling from Florida anymore because they don't have to. I don't know. But at any rate, this guy's a douche. No question about it. Everybody is worried about the Koch brothers. You all heard about how they like to finance candidates and programs and blah, blah, blah. This guy is just like them. You know what I mean? He's the other side of the coin. He's the billionaire financer who makes things happen. Makes me want to puke. I hate that our democracy can just be simply bought and sold like that. It blows my mind. And poop on the voters in Florida who believe that bull crap. I mean, come on, wake up. Hello, you raisins. Get off the Xanax. Let's move on to something healthy, something natural. What's wrong with that? Just disgust me. But at any rate, on a positive note, let's forget about Florida. Screw Disneyland. You don't want to go there anyways. Go to Alaska. Hey, I mean, it just keeps looking better and better. First we had the crab fisheries. And then now we got the gold mining on there. You know what I'm talking about, Discovery Channel. We got the wild people out there. And now we got legalized cannabis as well. I mean, that'll probably be the next Discovery show. Alaska Green Rush. Maybe they'll stop in Oregon on the way. You could just make a tour. Go to Colorado, hit Oregon, Washington, and then move on up to Alaska. You got to do the loop. You got to do the loop. Hey, I bet you that will be a thing now. They'll be offering tourist loops. You watch, somebody is going to be doing this as a business opportunity. But at any rate, wait a minute. You got to stop in Washington, D.C. first. Maybe that's where the tour will end. You cruise around the country. But at any rate, that's basically what happened in the election. Other things that will affect us that I did want to talk about today, one of them is, unfortunately, our state attorney race. I know a lot of folks out there were hoping that Bill Schuette would not be able to retain his job. But he did. It was a close race. I mean, if you look at the gubernatorial race, you had Snyder and Shower there. There's a little bit more of a pull away there for Snyder. And then when you look at the attorney general race, it was a lot closer. And I'm pretty sure that probably had something to do with the support that Mark Totten received from the medical marijuana community. However, unfortunately, it was not enough to make the difference. And I think a lot of folks in this state here, certainly on certain portions of the state, went in there and did the old party line poll, hit the GOP button, and didn't think about it. But unfortunately, for common sense, if you will, we got the wrong guy in office. That's my honest belief. Believe what you want, say what you will. I'm not a fan of the fella, and unfortunately, Schuette is still in power. So if you're wondering, that's the news on that.
Is there statute of limitations for attorney general? Basically, they can keep on getting elected, can't they? Because Frank Kelly had been as the attorney general for God knows how many years.
Wasn't Frank Kelly in power before we had term limits?
Yeah, but I don't know if I don't know if that applied to attorney generals. I don't know if the term limits applied to attorney generals.
I'm going to look that up because I honestly am not sure. I thought that all state elected positions were subject to state term limits.
Randall, I think she had been a attorney general for at least 2 terms. At least 2 before she became the governor, and she was the governor for term limit on the governor. So
2 terms is pretty much the normal limit there.
That's like for a governor, that would be 12 years. Michigan, right? For 2 terms, I think would be 12 years.
No, 8 years.
8 years. Yeah. Okay, 8 years. Okay. Yeah. So which is that's still plenty. That's still plenty to do damage in. So.
Yeah, plenty of time there. Ruin a whole lot of stuff. Let's see here. Yes, it is. I just looked it up and confirmed it, at least from Wikipedia. The Attorney General office is, in fact, limited to 2 terms. So this will be the last 4 years, but that means you're only halfway through. So if you don't like the result.
And has he been doing a lot of in trying to find ways to go and harass the medical marijuana community? Or?
He has done plenty. Let's just leave it at that. I think the majority of our voters out there, majority of our members out there are fully aware of the different issues that we've had from this office, and it's been more than plenty. He's muddied the waters, has not been in any way sort of help to the movement or to the law itself. I just want to move on. It's such a sore note. I'm just ugh. All right. So in the spirit of that, I'm moving on. All right. There's some positive other things I want to talk about that were involved here in Michigan, and specifically, I'm talking about the medical marijuana ordinances that were across Michigan really yesterday. Some passed, some didn't, and so let's get into that a little bit. Our neighbors to the north, Saginaw, they passed their ordinance. I'm gonna turn this down. There we go. They passed their ordinance, so that was a good thing. Obviously, this is one of those decrim measures, similar to what Flint, Ypsilanti, a lot of other cities around Michigan have as well. Saginaw was one of the ones that was, I would say, it was contested. It was basically kind of, some people didn't like it, but at any rate, it was passed. It did go through. So, folks over 21 years of age or older on private property, they have an ordinance now that will basically stop people from being cited with those offenses. One of the people up there, the Saginaw County Sheriff, William Federspiel, said deputies will stop citing people with minor marijuana violations. So that's pretty cool. I mean, it sounds like it's going to have some sort of impact. I know the Saginaw chief of police said, "Hey, look, we don't go after small marijuana infractions anyways. So it really doesn't make a difference for us," which is a lot of times what we hear after these ordinances have passed. But now basically, if you look at this, Saginaw, along with let's see here, Port Huron, a couple different communities in the Metro Detroit area, Huntington Woods and Berkeley, and let's see here. I think the other one was in. Forgive me. Oh, Mount Pleasant. That's the other area. I knew there's an area to the north. All of those areas yesterday passed. So in total, there was 5 that did pass their ordinances. 4, however, said no. One of those was Lapeer, and I'd like to point out that the Lapeer ordinance missed its vote by 2. Literally 2 votes would have made the difference there in that ordinance. But It did not go through. I think the other areas were Clare, Frankfurt, Harrison, and Onaway. So 5 different areas rejected their ordinances, and these are all low-level enforcement ordinances or some type of decrim measure within the city limits. So, but at any rate, I mean, I think all in all, you could say this was a positive. I mean, you had quite a few different communities there vote yes. Is there going to be a big change in those areas? No, not really. But it definitely is symbolic that across Michigan, voters feel, look, this either should not be as severe penalties as they currently are, or it should just not be penalized at all. And I think this is a growing movement within Michigan. It's echoing the other movement that we're seeing around the country, obviously with the recent legalization efforts going on. And I think this is just something that's going to continue to grow in Michigan. So where are we headed in the future in Michigan? I think in the future we're going to be looking at some sort of overall statewide decriminalization policy coming up, or maybe potentially some sort of legalization effort. I don't know. I mean, I'm just guessing. And as far as medical marijuana goes, we still have a couple bills sitting up there in the House and the Senate. And after the election, we all know this is the lame duck session. So anything can happen. We don't know. There's a lot of people that are on their way out the door at the state level, and they can cast a vote and not really have to worry too much about the consequences. That can be a good or a bad thing. And certainly right now, giving them your input as to any bills that they may come across during this lame duck session, it's going to be needed. They definitely want to hear your input, and hopefully now the ones that are on the way out, maybe they were a little hesitant to support this type of common sense measure, and they won't feel so pressurized to conform to their party ways, if you will, and might give us a yes when they previously would have said no. So you might have an impact, is what I'm saying. Who knows? But at any rate, that's where they are. You know what I'm talking about. It's the medical marijuana bills. One of them is an edible bill. The other one's for provisioning centers. And these are still bills in work, meaning that they could still have input. They still, time to make changes, and could get a vote in this year. If they don't get voted in, if they don't get voted on during this lame duck session, then they're just going to kind of go back to kaput, and it'll be a start over again sort of thing. And we've seen that happen as well, certainly in the last 5 years in regards to changes for the Michigan medical marijuana program. We've also seen it happen the other way where changes did occur. The legislature made those changes back about a year and a half ago in regards to transport, a few other things, the bona fide relationship, and so on. So things can change, and they can change for the good and for the bad, as you well know. So give your input if you have a chance. Say good job to the people that are on their way out. Let them know that their service is appreciated. And who knows, maybe we'll get a little bit of support on the way out the door. Who knows? Can always hope, right? All right, let's see what else we got going on here. I already talked about the changes here across the country. It's definitely a good thing. I cannot believe some of the Florida just still blows my mind. And in the wave of these changes, there's a couple other states that are already popping up and saying that we need to have further change. Like Iowa, the Board of Pharmacy just recently urged again for a change to the medical marijuana laws. The lawmakers are, kind of slow to respond out there in Iowa, and the State Board of Pharmacy said that the lawmakers should consider allowing the Iowans to access legal medical marijuana. And the first suggestion they made a while ago was completely ignored. The board is now making a second recommendation. So it's kind of cool. They're holding a public hearing November 17th to get public input, the Board of Pharmacy is. And so maybe it'll stir up some talk, maybe some action there for the folks in Iowa. We'll see. All right. This is a cool story I want to share with you guys, and I thought this was interesting coming from Ohio. As we all know, Ohio does not have a medical marijuana provision in their state. I know quite a few people that are, have family in Ohio and have been told, they're hostile to medical marijuana patients. There's no mercy down there. So this is kind of interesting. The story is to the contrary. It's in the city of Cincinnati. You guys remember the show? Cincinnati, they basically passed last week. Anyone caught with 100 grams of cannabis will only face a $150 fine and court fees, as opposed to a 30-day jail sentence and $250 in fines. So quite a bit of a big change there in the processing of their laws. Cincinnati, obviously a very large city, a lot of folks there are affected by this, and a pretty big change in how they're processing things. So kudos to the folks in Cincinnati for passing this, for having the guts to do so in a non-friendly state. And I think that this is something that's going to help the law enforcement in their area be able to dedicate time and effort to things that really matter, as I'm sure, just like every other major metropolitan area, they have bigger things to worry about other than personal possession of cannabis. So that's pretty cool. In addition to that, they're also going back and taking a look at folks that have been previously processed for cannabis possession, which I thought this part of the law was especially cool. It says that they have an expungement process for folks that have been busted just as long as it was for 100 grams or less. So basically, if you got popped in the past for basically what is now a civil infraction, you can go back and have your sentence re-looked at. Maybe you had a felony or misdemeanor, and you can now get that expunged off your record. If you're still potentially serving time, you might be released early. So this is a pretty big deal. It affects the inmates in the area, and I think it's awesome. I mean, I think they're calling it a Fresh Start Expungement Clinic. So that's pretty cool. The county, the public defender, Hamilton County Public Defender, is holding a seminar. That's the clinic I just mentioned, helping people to find out more information about this. So kudos to Cincinnati. Isn't Cincinnati WKRP, right?
Yeah, WKRP. Yeah, that was a great TV series. It was funny. Of course, when they released it, they had a problem with the license of the music, so they released it on DVD, devoid of all the music that made it.
Really?
Yeah. So I was like, this is lame. Now you don't have the music and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even remember hardly anything about that show other than a song.
So I had a friend who wrote a book about that thing. He teaches at U of M, and he wrote a book called WKRP, America's Favorite Radio Station, and it was a few years ago, so I don't know if it's still in print, but in Mike Castle from U of M Flint. So
yeah,
and he did background interviews with all all the people on that show, and that was really cool. Plus the creator of the series too. So it was pretty interesting. But
very cool.
If you ever want to read it, I'll let you borrow the book. So.
Right on. I think it's just super cool to see that happen, to a major city in a state that has been hostile. The exact opposite. And I think it's Ohio is one of those states where they were trying to drum up support for a medical marijuana measure, but just couldn't get it done. And I know that they've repeatedly been trying for years and years and years. And it's slowly gaining momentum, and I think that this is definitely a showing that the future may be the near future that you see a change in the state of Ohio. I mean, certainly the public sentiment is ahead of the political body or establishment. So
well, I know Cincinnati's just real close to the border of Kentucky there, and I was just wondering what the status is on a Kentucky law for medical marijuana or for recreational use.
Well, for Kentucky, I know that they've had a couple of different measures proposed for medical marijuana, but to my knowledge, nothing yet. Nothing has occurred yet. Nothing's really come up for a major vote. So. Again, kind of like Ohio, I mean, they have a gaining movement, and you'll see this in a lot of states across the union, states that don't have medical marijuana provisions already. They're almost guaranteed is going to be something working in that state legislature somewhere dealing with medical marijuana, whether it be CBD only type legislation, maybe decriminalization, legalization, medical marijuana, whatever it may be, or whatever angle it may be tried. The majority of the states out there that don't have something already on the books have something that is in the works, if you will. And in fact, probably the only state that doesn't have something currently in the works is Florida, because they just shot it down. But give them a couple weeks, and I'm sure they'll probably have a new proposal that they're working on, and a new effort going, and give them time. But at any rate, I mean, like here's another one here. Missouri. This is on tokeofthetown.com. You can check this out. The Show Me Cannabis, I'm reading from this, plans to file paperwork this week for a ballot initiative that would ask Missouri voters to legalize the use and sale of marijuana. So here's a state that's kind of bypassing the whole medical marijuana scene and just jumping straight to legalization, if you will. I want to kind of talk about that statement real quickly, because I don't feel that states have to have medical marijuana before they have recreational marijuana. I don't necessarily feel that medical marijuana is a stepping stone to that. Certainly we've seen that it has currently been that way, and so I know that the evidence may be to the contrary. However, it's not a necessity. I think that a state, like Missouri, could certainly go straight to a legalized effort and bypass the sort of medical scene. We'll have yet to see. There was a poll that was put out. It says the past February, there was a ballot scheduled for the midterm selections that polled indicating a 51% opposed legalization compared to the 45% in favor. So it's definitely a wishy-washy thing. It doesn't have full support yet, and maybe it's just going to need some more education down there for those voters to be able to make up to be able to make up that majority. So we'll have to see. I mean, I'd like to see a state do that. I'd like to see a state jump over just to prove and say, hey, you don't have to have medical marijuana as a part of the legislative process prior to having legalization. And truthfully, I think that there's a lot of folks out there that it is a totally different thing for them. I mean, they're using this truly medicinally, and so it doesn't matter if it's recreational or not. They need this for their symptoms, for managing their health, and it's a lot more important to them than just, can I choose to relax in this manner or not? I mean, this is a medical necessity, and I think that those folks should be granted an exception to their state's laws when we have the majority of the states already on the books recognizing the benefits and the needs for medical marijuana. So, taking a patient right now in a state that's sick and putting them in jail because they've got marijuana because your state doesn't have medical marijuana on the books right now, that's what sick is. You think about that. That's just asinine. And you can put yourself in those people's shoes. Let's say you're in a state like Oklahoma and you're a cancer patient. You get popped with a little bit of cannabis, maybe an ounce, and so now you're facing 30 years in prison when you could have that same ounce in 22 other states in the United States and be perfectly legal. So, one person's facing a life sentence and the other person's legal in the same country. Yeah, that's what sick is. So we still have a lot of work yet to do, and I'd like to see, like I said, I'd like to see the state jump in the process and just move right on to legalization and say, hey, absolutely, the sick people should have it. What we're talking about here is a policy, a social change. We'll see here.
Being part of the medical marijuana group, the Compassion Club is. Okay, say if they did just jump on board and do a total legalization thing, would you then probably be the emphasis for the medical marijuana groups out there would make sure that there wouldn't be such a heavy tax placed upon those people using it for medical purposes? Would you say that would be the major thrust of if they were doing anything to be involved? If it was just a total legalization effort,
well, in the states that have currently, the only one I can really talk about so far is Colorado, because that's the only one that really has the active system up and running and has some data for us to look at. And you can see there that in that state, the medical patients are the ones that are not paying a tax. There was no tax associated to or assigned to that transaction for those patients. So it's the folks out there that are using this recreationally that are generating the tax revenue, which is the way I think it should be. And I would hope that other states would do the same. I think that medicine shouldn't be taxed. It's only makes it more difficult for the patient to access what it is that they need, whether it be cannabis or some other type of medicine for that matter. I don't think those should be taxed. So it does depend on the state, though, I do believe. And I think it's up to the state to make those decisions. Those voters can make those calls. It's up to them.
See, legislators, lawmakers, I think they see just people. They don't see people. They see dollar signs. They see people as a cash cow. And if I guess there was a situation going on in Colorado where they were trying to eliminate people who are claiming to use it for medical marijuana because they weren't going to be able to get the taxes out of it. They're going to try to disallow more people for that claim.
Sure.
And so that's where I have a problem with. It's like, do you charge people more for using for using their medicine, blood pressure medicine, for example?
Right.
You're gonna tax for that?
Yeah.
I mean, these bastards got to slow down on how they find ways of taking our money.
Well, and some of that fault goes on the medical marijuana movement in itself, or marijuana movement, I guess I should say, because a lot of folks out there that have been proponents of straight up legalization measures have done so with the phrase tax and regulate. I mean, so they're kind of asking to be taxed. But I'd like to point out that is coming from the folks that are asking for recreational cannabis, full-on legalization. And I think that there should continue to be a separation between the two so that folks in the future or currently now that are receiving this as medication should continue to be able to do so without being taxed for it. As people that are in the business, in the medical marijuana business, if they're doing this as a business and creating income or revenue from that, well then sure, they should have to pay tax. But as far as for the people that are consuming it and using it for their own purposes, no, I don't think you should have to pay a tax on that. Is there a way to separate the two? There already is, I believe. I mean, we don't have a sales tax currently here in Michigan, so there is no sales tax on medical marijuana because there are no sales of medical marijuana in Michigan according to the state law. It's considered a transfer. So that's one of the things right there that kind of eliminates the state sales tax. However, that does not negate the fact that businesses here in Michigan still have to pay tax. So if someone is acting as a caregiver and is doing so as a business, they're still subject to business taxes that any business would face. Or for that matter, if you have a collective going on or some other type of entity that you've created to deal with your medical marijuana transactions, if that thing's generating revenue, you have an obligation under law to file taxes underneath that. So I don't think we need to have additional laws passed to say we need further taxation. I don't think that's necessary. It's already there. It's already being taxed. However, if we're going to put this out there on a recreational basis, make it available for legal adults and for anyone for that matter, and you want to see a separate excise tax for that, I think most folks are not going to be opposed to that. I personally would not be opposed to it. I'm not really a fan of any taxes for that matter, but I think I would resonate with most folks out there and say, well, if that's the cost of doing business, then that's what it is. I mean, you pay a separate tax for tobacco, you pay a separate tax for alcohol. So if you're going to put a sin tax on this as well, I don't think most folks out there are going to bellyache about it. But I do think that it should be separate from medical. I don't think that patients out there should have to pay a separate excise tax on their medicine. To me, that just goes against the grain of what we're trying to do here. This was a Compassionate Care Act that was provided, so let's not forget about the compassion part. We want people to be able to access their medication, as economically feasibly as possible. I mean, that only makes sense. So
me being the cynical libertarian that I am, the power to tax is the power to destroy, the power to eliminate. And
I kind of agree with you on that, John. I mean, I'm not a fan of any tax. I don't think that we need to have any more taxes. I think that we need to reallocate what our funds are that are already coming in. And I think that we should probably spend a lot less on a whole lot of different things. But
because I think
it's really a different kind of we're kind of opening up the door here into the Pandora box, if you will, to talk about taxes.
I think we should just make it, so they can take fewer openings for them to take our money from us. Let the bastards go and get real jobs like everybody else. Honest jobs.
I think that we should, folks that are in the marijuana movement, if you will, I think they should re-examine their conversation, their tactics, vocabulary, whatever it is you want to call it, and sort of reformulate how it is that we're presenting things here, because I don't know that, jumping on the tax bandwagon is the greatest thing. Is it going to be a part of it? Probably. I mean, is it going to be more enticing to talk to your political representative and say, hey, you realize that if you allow this to be conducted and collect a tax on it, there's going to be some benefits you can brag about that you did. I mean, that kind of goes hand in hand. It's a no-brainer. And I think that that's something that is probably going to be a carrot that we can't deal without. You know what I mean? When it comes to folks trying to advance this, you got different activists going to be getting involved or already involved in advancing the marijuana movement. That's something that they're going to be throwing out there almost definitely. But I don't think that's something that we should have to, put it that way. I think that there's enough other ways that the government already has to tax people and businesses and corporations and so on and so forth. And we don't need to give them another avenue. There's already plenty out there. So at any rate, that's my rant on taxes. You look at Colorado, they've generated, I think the figure was like $380,000 a month that they've generated so far this year for the tax revenue that's been collected on the recreational sales in Colorado, excuse me. So that's no small chunk of change, and Michigan's done over $10 million in revenue collection just from the medical marijuana. So there's certainly an economic impact there to be had, no doubt about it. All right, well, That's what I wanted to talk about with you this week. That's about it for the news across the country. There's other significant things, or insignificant things, I guess I should say. But the majority of the important stuff we just talked about. So I guess if you want to plan out your future vacations, you now know what states you can go to have a whole lot of fun. Like I said, I think Alaska just keeps looking better and better. Although the cold weather kind of makes me think, no, I wish Florida would have got it done, but they didn't. Oh well. All right, screw Disney. Huh? All right. Hey, appreciate you guys joining us this week on the show. Always a pleasure to be here on the Genesee County Compassion Club show. And it's great to be back in the studio at All Points TV. John, thanks for joining me today. Appreciate you being here. And I appreciate you guys. The viewers, you rock. Thanks for watching the show. And tune in next week. And keep yourself safe. I'm Jeremy. Have a great week.